We'll try to make heads or tails, and tonight's PUG user group, persons user group, PUG stands for. Let's do a little house cleaning first and foremost. What we discuss here is educational purposes. Just remember that trading is risky. There's significant loss of trading future stocks, options, and Forex. There is. All right. So where do we begin? I think the two things that I had, someone wanted to ask is what makes this special? Someone said, what makes it special? What's the best I can get use of it, was the email. It was a new person, obviously, so I think it's a very good question. I have been accused that the value of this, besides all the other bells and whistles, come together. You can put together what you want. And coming in 2017, we have a lot of new additions for the VIP members, like an LCC on the radar screen. But in answer to the question, what makes this special? I think two things. Taking the power of TradeStation with the scanners, which now more and more companies are developing scans, but it's the TradeStation scan that allows us to put things together like no one else can. Multiple indicators, multiple time frames, and those are the kind of things that, at least from a proprietary standpoint, we can have programmed on TradeStation. And so how I use it to make money, very simply put, is I scan for certain things at different junctures of the market. So I guess it's a step process. The first step I have to say to myself is the market bullish or bearish? Are we in an uptrend or a downtrend? So number one, the process would be, the best thing about this product is, A, if you look down here at the tabs, depending on the version that you have, whether you're full VIP or whether you're the lifetime comes complete with the radar screen. And the radar screen, I have to say, is the second most valuable aspect of this product. End of story. Getting real-time or right before they generate buy or sell signals, either on a Friday before the market closes to get a heads up about weekly signals that are developing, or at the end of the day to get a heads up that there is a new change coming. It helps us to detect if we just have our own stocks programmed. And what I've done is I've created a symbol list, and we have sectors first. So many of you are aware of that. And under the sectors, I have the stocks that I am looking at. So that way I can kind of get a gauge of whether or not the market is looking bullish for that entire sector. I can, in one quick view, see what the trend is from a daily perspective, what the trend is on a weekly perspective, and et cetera, et cetera. I can also look on a weekly and a monthly basis. So with that said, I'm able to look at right before the close, if I'm looking at a market that I've been stalking, for example. Let's say weekly, I went through my weekly analysis and I said I have some markets that I want to be looking at. I think for whatever reason, maybe certain subsectors are stronger than others. Maybe I'm looking at technology. One that we came up with today in the trading room, by the way, many of you, if you were there today, you know, was Akamai Technologies, which generated a scan number one, which is a daily buy when the weekly is in a buy mode. So Akamai Technology, daily buy when the weekly is in a buy mode. Pretty powerful. The only problem is last night, and the power of this is the daily signal on Akamai was flashing. If you notice right now, it's not flashing. It's solid. Yesterday into before the close, it was flashing. So it was warning that it was generating and going to generate a bullish signal, which is up, while the weekly was in a buy signal, which is solid green, and it says up. How does that help you? Really simply put, it helps you to get in if you want to look at that market a little bit more in depth. It will help you to be able to avoid getting in on a gap higher opening by buying before the market closes. So if you get in on the close and then all of a sudden the market gaps up, you are in before the gap up. Now, if you bought on the open this morning, you're still making a little money, but not like you would getting the heads up on the radar screen. It's that cool. So that's one of the advantages that you have to using the radar screen. And almost every single day religiously, I just take this little mouse right here and I go up and down and I scroll back and forth to say, what's generating buy signals? Two things I look for to use this product. Number one, I look to see if there are more buy signals in a sector. That's number one. And I like to see if the buy signal is in sync with a weekly or higher degree time frame. So I'm doing two things. I'm looking to see if other stocks in the sector are bullish, and I'm looking to see if the sector or that particular stock is in a longer term weekly trend higher. If not, then I may take a pass on the trade. So those are the two advantages that we have that you really got to be able to use. So let's say you have a job, you can't look at the market, you can't open up TradeStation before the close. Well, that's going to be a disadvantage to you. But if you're looking for trend reversals, then what you would be looking at, or continuation patterns, you'd be doing more work over the weekend and using the same concept for weekly buy signals when the monthly's in a buy mode. So if you're not an end-of-day trader, you're literally more of a position trader, and this is still going to give you the advantage by giving you early warning signals or going with the trend of a weekly. And like Akamai, great example, then we have our little volume tools that we could utilize. And you can kind of look at what the overall trend of the market is if you want to join that kind of bullish parade that's got going on there right now, at least for today. So the advantages of how we utilize this are several fold. Running individual scans, number one. If you're in the inkling that you believe that the market is bullish and it's in a continuation uptrend, then your focus would be on a continuation signal. And a continuation signal, and I always teach this and it's almost redundant, when the market's in a weekly uptrend and it has a short-term pullback, we are looking for the market to give us a buy signal in the direction of the higher degree time frame. And that's what buy signal number one is. When you go down the list, and this was a scan that ran today, if you go down the list, you could say, okay, well, what sectors are doing well? Did we get a concentration? And in today's scans, by the way, we had a lot of consumer staples, cyclicals, that generated buy signals. Now, what's really kind of this time of year, earnings season, right? You got to be a little knowledgeable, like what's come out with earnings. Now, so if you know it's earnings season and you don't know when earnings are coming out, and you don't have an additional tool to identify earnings, which are available, this probably would let you know that if the average daily range is doing this, that was probably an earnings reaction, a reactionary move based off an earnings. And if that's what you assumed, you would be right, because it is. When I look down the list, using this, I would note that, wow, we have a few energy, we have some financials, and I look in the financials, and Regions Financial is a regional bank, and I noticed that even with today's action, we did get a move up with a scan number one on Regions Financial, by the way. So that's we're back to perhaps a market that is in a continuation mode. So here's an idea. I mean, and actually it's not just a daily buy signal, but an HCD that bounced off pivot support, the blue line. This is a market, when I see something like this, if I want to be looking at the overall trend, I would be also examining what my volume looks like, my volume tool, the volume indicator, or if you're a lifetime, not VIP, you have access, obviously, with the on-balance volume and the histogram. Now, my own personal interpretation of this is while it's a great setup earlier with a weekly, this is a weekly chart, weekly high close doji, which was probably it generated a really good buy setup, right? It's taken a little while to get some gumption going, and the momentum indicator and the volume indicator and even the on-balance volume personally is not demonstrating a real conviction of strength in the market for me right now, at least with Regions Financial. That's how I kind of look at this. In essence, when you put more information on the screen, you will notice that we have a consecutive series of highs up here, right? And you'll notice that the volume is substantially lower than its prior peak high, which is pretty darn close to. And even my little volume indicator is not anywhere near it. So this to me would not be something, it would be, while granted the daily buy is in a weekly buy, it's at the top end of a trading range. So to me, I wouldn't be looking at that particular trade. So this is exactly how I would walk through something right now. If I'm if I like the bank sector, this is Bank America. So, I mean, the next thing I said, well, it's very interesting that we have a lot today of all market segments to look at. We had a strong concentration in financials. One name pops out. I kind of take a look at a few of these names. Bank America. Bank America, it is in a monthly buy. It's been in a weekly buy. The volume looks pretty spectacular on the weekly. It's in a continuation on the weekly. It seems to be trying to break out of old highs, and then on a daily basis, we generate a buy signal. So for me, I would look at this, and for the record, I'm already long Bank America, so it's kind of a, it's just for the record, I am long Bank America. So it's kind of nice to see it populate a buy signal. The fact is, I look at this and I go, well, I'm long, but my volume indicators, kind of not demonstrating it's supporting this move. So while I am long, I would like to see more volume come into the game. I'd like to see the histogram, the daily histogram, get a little stronger. But when I look at this and I go back over to the weekly, so for a position trader, someone that works during the day and can't look at things, and you come in at the end of the night, I would look at this and say, I do struggle with, certainly it's nice to see a daily buy, but it also has a very menacing volume and histogram component to it that it doesn't look like. I would not add to the position. I would not put a new fresh position on here. Let's leave it at that. High closed dojis, a high closed doji at the end of a run-up in the market. A high closed doji at the end of a run-up is not a high closed doji. High closed dojis come after downtrend. So that's just a doji and a close above the doji. So I really utilize the magnitude of momentum as well as volume, not just on a daily basis, but on a weekly basis. The tools that are here, especially another, so in summary, really, the most phenomenal aspect about this product is literally the scans in the radar screen, especially in the work when we combine the volume indicators. The bells and whistles, including, for example, advanced decline analysis. To be able to take one look and say, gee, is this market, it's starting to see weakness, relative weakness with and this is the S&Ps, this is the NASDAQ, the diamonds, the NYSE, of course the NASDAQ composite, and the Russell. So for me, I get to take a look at and say, which of these component indexes are the strongest or the weakest, which ones look really good. And when we compare and define strongest and weakest, one of the things that defines strong and weak to me is, are we making consecutive series of higher highs, or are we making a consecutive series of lower lows? Is volume making a consecutive series of higher highs and higher lows? And if it is, and we have a consecutive series of lower highs and lower lows, or lower highs and lower lows, it makes it a difficult choice to say the indicators themselves, the market's volume is eroding, the market's breadth structure is eroding. It makes it a little bit difficult for me to want to get in and say, yippee-yi-yo-ki-yay, let's get really aggressively long here. This has been an issue that's been struggling the market since about July, by the way. So, you know, we can only use tools that help us identify the market condition. Unfortunately, the rally in the nice NASDAQ composite, by the way, on the run-up, it was light, and on the decline, it's a little heavier than it was on the run-up. I think you can see that measurement that I'm giving you. As a technical analyst, I mean, I look at this and I go, wow, we just made a substantial lower low in the NASDAQ composite, and it doesn't give me a warm and fuzzy feeling that I should be getting all that aggressively long the market right now. So that, combined with maybe another indicator or index, excuse me, the other index being the Russell, which was the strongest index on a year-to-date percentage change, right? You know, just a few weeks ago, we were up about 11.5%. Is the breadth, the amount of stocks making higher highs, or is it making lower highs, lower lows? And what happened with the volume? They certainly took a little bit of volume out of that market, and it hasn't gone anywhere. So that doesn't give me a huge building of confidence in the market to buy this break right now. If I got maybe a bullish consensus of higher lows, and I had like we had, you know, earlier this year when we were aggressively bullish, and I want to reemphasize aggressively bullish the market, when we saw a combination in the Russell of the breadth and the OBV shooting up together in unison, that was quite a, you know, we took a little bit of heat on that little downturn right there. But to look at the market in terms of what is its structure, and that takes a little bit of education as far as what we've put together to help you define when a market's bullish or bearish. So with that said, I think another easy explanation is when a market's at pivot support, quarterly support, look for buying opportunities. When a market's at quarterly resistance and you start to see a weakening structure in the market, maybe start to identify selling opportunities, or perhaps we need to wait for a correction or signs that it's time to get aggressive in the market. Those are the things that I'm looking at for myself. So when I use these scans, guys, when I look at these scans, I want to do two things. I use the scans not just for buying and selling opportunity, but also to help give confirmation on the strength or weakness of the overall market. So on a weekly basis, for example, high close doji weekly basis. On Friday, as of Friday, we had 53 high close dojis generate in these three segments of the market: S&P, all NYSE, and all of NASDAQ. Out of that, we only generated 53 buy signals on a weekly high close doji. How about sell signals based on the same criteria? Low close doji. And just to compare an apple to an apple, all NYSE, all NASDAQ, all S&P. So I'm running the scan on the same markets. What did we populate? Just about 394 compared to 53. So if we have 394 fresh sell signals, low close dojis, compared to 53 HCD buy signals, and on a weekly time frame, I do not get the bullish warm and fuzzy. If it was the opposite, if we had the opposite, I would be a little bit more apt to say, gee, it looks like we have more buy signals than sell signals. The overall market is starting to see some impending strength. As it is, it's kind of like the opposite. So with more stocks going down, the breadth going down, I'm more apt to be looking at, in that condition, sell signals in the market. Incidentally, when we look at sell signals, and you could do it either A, alphabetically, or B, you could do it by sector. Just double click the header. Symbol, sector. If you do it by symbol and you're familiar with enough symbols and you go on down the list, you know, I'll just share with you, we did get, by the way, the Qs generated, the Power Trust, the Qs did generate a weekly low close doji. So, you know, you can go up and down and you can say, wow, there it is. It's color coordinated. And I can take a look at the condition of the market, a color highlighted, excuse me. So there's a highlight of the color. So it would be no wonder it would have been on my list this week in the weekly thoughts and observations to put out that particular analysis. In addition, one of the things that I look at is the market certainly has had a run-up. Whether or not it fails from here, I have to take a look at the market structure and say, gee, we've actually seen you know, a time period where we've made higher highs from previous peaks, and volume is not out of that time frame. We've made a significant higher high, and looking at the volume analysis does not reflect a true, at least a stronger momentum move. It kind of illustrates, in fact, you can see the histogram component sharing we have a short term over this time frame of divergence, and as longer term goes from this time to that time, a divergence. So if I was going to take action on a trade, this is now that time to take action, which we have. So will it work? Well, here's the wonderful thing about the system is it also illustrates where your risk is based on the last conditional change, the LCC. And that'll lead me to my next comment, where we had a member send an email, which I could use as a testimonial. He is a, I wouldn't classify him as a professional trader, but he was a member of the exchange at one point, and he sent in a very nice email and stating your system, simply put, just works. And what he likes, though, is he likes the last conditional change. I love them, and I hope you grow to appreciate them too, because you know, they really do help to illustrate resistance points and where to place stops and points of breakout and breakdowns. They truly are a fantastic. They truly are a fantastic tool, and they're so fantastic. We are working on getting them coded for which will be available for VIP members on the radar screen, just like the HCDs that we had to get coded and put up there. So I think if we do get an LCC, in other words, a last conditional change, a close or a buy signal above a last conditional change, it will give us a bullish buy setup. Kind of a little bit stronger, like so for example in Akamai, if you get a last conditional change, that gray line, and it closes above there, it would be a different buy signal. For example, on the weekly basis, you can see the sell signal, and I'll zoom this up real quick, and I hope I'm not scattering around. I'm trying to keep focused on a couple of the questions that were presented. What are the main features of this product? The scanners. When do I look to scan things? The radar screen. How do I use the radar screen? And then finally, how do I classify a good buy signal or a stronger buy signal or sell signal? The last conditional change feature, which puts the actual price in gray on the side of your, it's underneath 58.26. I have to There it is. So it's this gray is the last known, last conditional change candle. It's 58.47. If the market closes above that level, it generally is a clear sign of a breakout. In addition, last conditional changes often act as strong resistance. Many times in the trading room, in day trading purposes, we break through it, but we don't close above it, and then it acts as a reversal point. So the last conditional changes is really a fantastic tool in which to use. A couple of things about the VIP, and people often ask about the volume indicator and what it does. And simply put, I've shared a few things, and the famous video we put on YouTube that gave a list of about 52 stocks that had bearish divergences near their highs. 3M was one, Dollar Tree, Dollar General, and of course McDonald's, I think Home Depot, and the list went on, about 52 names. When I look at how to utilize that tool, whether it's for day trading or a trade setup that we took in Amazon last week. Amazon was a trade we did, I guess some people in the trading room did credit call spreads. I did the 835, 30 bear put spreads. On the 4th, we had a little bit of divergence. The market was rallying. We were up against resistance. We took about a day of heat on that trade. It came back down. In fact, we made a comment before as the market came in to take a profit. We said that if the market actually runs up and gets right back into that zone, to get back into the trade. So where did we get the idea that Amazon was peaking out? And if you look at a couple tools, and I'll share with you real quickly, here's the on-balance volume indicator. On-balance volume, and then now let me go to insert analysis technique, or try to. Here we go. So I have a 60-minute chart with daily pivots, and we know that because these are each individual respective time frame is a day. All right. So looking at the market here, a couple things about Amazon. Or in general, the indicators. On-balance volume does this an awful lot, and my indicator actually contradicts the on-balance volume more times than not in helping to determine divergence patterns. And that's one of the most powerful things. We had a divergence pattern here as the market was rising into these highs. We had the histogram showing that it was making lower highs. So with that, and having the right amount of time on our side, that's where we were looking. And then as the market had one more spike, which no one ever likes to see, but we did get one more spike in the market, it generated a double whammy divergence pattern. I'll let you see that for yourself. You can see here is lower highs, and whereas on-balance volume has a little flaw. So this little proprietary volume indicator that I created is something that is very dynamic in helping to detect divergent volume patterns before we saw the rollover. Now, how that helps us, we don't want to get into a trade too early, but we don't want to get into a trade too late. And what we want is that kind of that perfect blend, and that's how I use this to make money. It's real simple. A lot of people, I think, in the trading room definitely were a part of that. I know a lot of it. It was a special trade for last week. And in addition to that, I want to just take a quick gander about the Qs real quick, because I think this is, indicative of looking at the weekly volume and then taking a look at the daily volume here, right? So while on-balance volume is, starting to show a kind of a curvature, saucer, rounding top type of pattern, the volume indicator is demonstrating, as it's trying to make newer highs, it's showing some relative weakness in the volume, the true trend of the volume. Now, do we get failure to the downside? I'm really hoping so, because we were looking for a snapback in the Qs, and today we got filled on the weekly thoughts and observations trade at a lot better. We got filled on the open at 1814 area. So we did get a better fill due to that gap higher. And I think in looking at the indicators themselves between the weekly LCD, okay, between the weekly low close doji and then B, the volume right here, I'm looking to see this market at least get back into this 115.5 zone in the Qs. So we can change this up real quick to a weekly time frame and then take a look at what the weekly analysis shares relative to the on balance volume. And we have to scale that every once in a while. There we go. All right. So using the indicators, if you have a setup, it's like, okay, it's a low close doji. Is it after a rally? Yes, it is. How does the volume look? Well, OBV looks, a little reminiscent of a, it's at about the same level when prices are higher. And then our indicator here is starting to show in the histogram component, it's losing its bullish momentum. I mean, the last time we had rallies and you start to lose your bullish momentum, what happens to the market? We get decline. So if we do, and if we are to trust an indicator, you want an indicator that has had good predictability powers, not just in one market, but in all markets in various time frames. And that's how I utilize this system myself to make money in the markets and make good trade decisions. So not every trade's a winner. There's no doubt about it. Today, for example, this is a recording, shouldn't even bring it up, but I like the fact that we get every once in a while, it gets you humbled. I mean, you're going to laugh. Actually, I made money at the end of the day, so it was all good. But I took this little, I mean, you'll probably agree with me. We had a 15-minute sell signal. The market was in a weekly sell mode, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe you could kind of work with me on this one. We had a, double top again. 8:30 when the market opened, first hour, market trades down. It rallies. It generates a low close doji. Short with a tight stop because that's what the system says. While the histogram volume started to move up, the on-balance volume didn't. The histogram was going down. We were looking for a trend continuation to the downside. What happened? Stopped us out, and then we did kind of like nothing for a little while, and then we finally ran up in the market. So on a day trade perspective, right, on a day trade perspective, the fact is I was more trusting of the low close doji going with the trend of the market at that point in time than I was even the volume histogram. Had I used the volume histogram here, it wasn't in a true spot of looking for a market weakness. At this point in time, the on-balance volume didn't give any assistance at all. So I just want to say, if we can sit here and I can spend hours on all the winners, I'd like to spend time on when does it not work, and because nothing's 100%. Apart from my emails that everyone's making money, and apart from this is an easy market to trade, et cetera, just buy Apple and you'll be happy. I get that. The fact is that this is a fairly challenging market environment, and in fact it's challenging to the point where it chops and flops around, goes into a minor uptrend, which looks great from a day trade perspective. Actually, this is about, if you think about it from a buyable standpoint, around 34.5, and it runs up to 37.5. I mean, you're really talking about 12 ticks. So that little run. And then what does the market do for the majority of the day? It ends up doing literally nothing. So this is the kind of, I call it the all or none syndrome. We finally did get a little money and made money back and went positive at the end of the day by a 15-minute low close doji, which was pretty amazing. But in and of itself, how do we utilize these tools to help us make better decisions? When the volume starts to detrend, and then all of a sudden you start to look at, and I'll change this up for you guys. In fact, this is what we posted in the trading room. We had this up. If you were in the trading room, then we had this up, which was really cool because the high and low close doji indicator, right? Here's the sell signal that saved the day, was targeting, and again, it wasn't a huge win, but it just helped me make back losses and made me positive for the day. But this is all the market gave us today, you know, as far as defined signals. The volume went negative, the histogram showed divergence, and we got a low close doji at the end of the day, risk and the reward. The funny thing about the market is these HCD and LCDs, you know, that was targeting, you can see the dots, that's targeting the profit. It goes down, and just about when it targets it, that's about the end of the trend run. But what makes us get better trade signals is how you utilize this tool, whether it's for day trading the market, whether it's for looking at volume divergences from Amazon to even a product like Priceline. Priceline, by the way, same kind of concept. Where do you find value in the volume indicator versus on balance volume? And I'll share this with you in just a second, because again, what have I told you? I stated that this volume indicator helps to define and filter out bearish and bullish divergence patterns better, more so than on balance volume. Case in point, does the market make in price higher highs? Answer is yes. At this point, I want you to focus in on this point here. At this point in time, on 10.5, the market is making higher highs. You're looking at Priceline, maybe you're looking at, it's one of the stocks that I'm stalking, especially as it nears 1,500, a round even number, but one thing that we had been talking about in the trading room as well. And here is a neat little thing. The histogram is showing divergence. What is the on-balance volume doing? It's not showing divergence. What did the volume indicator show? Divergence and negative movement on 10.4. So on 10.4, it was starting to show negative movement. So when you look at the indicators, what's a more, at times, the real helpful tool here, and all you have to do is to be able to, whether this is a 60-minute chart Priceline, a 5-minute chart ES, a daily chart on Amazon, it doesn't matter that if it's robust, which this is going to help us to uncover these hidden secret volume divergence patterns. Now, many of you probably won't trade Priceline. It's probably one of the very few stocks that I would trade directionally with a anywhere from a 10 to a 15, and you're going to hate me for this. I know George is in the room tonight. But it's one of the very few stocks that you can actually trade directionally with a 10 to 15 delta. There's some pretty decent volume in there if you're a directional trader with the right setup. I mean, let's face it, a stock that can move $50, a 10 delta move is going to make you a little bit of money, and Priceline is famous for that. So when you're looking for a directional trade, what's the one thing you want to look for? When does the trend end, A, and B, is it maybe, if you're going to be looking for a reversal, one of the number one catalysts that I look for is divergence. So if a market's going to slingshot to the upside, bullish convergence is very powerful. Bearish divergence is very powerful. So that's where that tool really helps populate. How would you find these sell signals? Real simple. If you use your advanced trading system and you go over to the radar screen, guys, and if you go over to stock short term and you have your interval, you can change your interval to whatever time frame you want. Go over, you can even customize your time frame. But if you want 60-minute, 240, 30, 15, 5, 10, 1, 30 seconds even, you can change that interval. This interval column right here is going to populate your HCD LCDs for those that have the VIP package, or the new trade signal, which is the PPS. All right? That interval is going to reflect these two columns right there. As you all know, blinking means it's brand new, red means it was, and that's what you want to kind of focus in on. So the moral of the story is, all you have to do, if it's the top of the hour, half the day, 4 hours, whatever you're looking at, and again, end of day is this column, end of day is that column. And that's how you just go and you say, well, what does the market look like? Something's blinking. What's that? The semis, SMH. The semis generating a 60-minute sell signal. And that's fairly, and by the way, if you were trading at the end of the day, it was right. It generated a PPS sell signal, and not only that, but on the close it had a low close doji. So the semis, I mean, I'm just picking one out just for the hell of it. That is where and then all you have to do is kind of take a look-see at what the condition of the market is if you like that. So whether that's the end of day, intra time period like the 60-minute, or you can change that to the 15-minute. You'll have an idea of what new buy or sell signals are populating. So if you just keep, on just a quick gander of what's happening, if you notice here on a 60-minute, they're just for the record. I mean, if you go through here, we formed a lot of little 60-minute low close dojis. If you notice, there's a lot of 60-minute LCDs that populated towards the end of the day in a lot of the stocks. Dow, FCX, FMC, all of these generated, as you can see, LCDs at the end of the day on a 60-minute basis. That's a lot of LCDs on an end-of-day basis right there. And a lot of new signals. A lot of stuff was either left the day in red and left the day, and technology, of course, left the day with a lot of LCDs and a lot of sell signals, ironically. So the best method to get out of the person's package, without a doubt, it's got to be the scanners, right? It helps me to detect buy and sell signals. When I use that, I use it, number one, to take a look-see at a living, breathing entity of breadth. In other words, are there more buy or sell signals? What kind, though? Are there more scan number ones, or are there more weekly buys, more weekly sells? And that helps give me an idea that, boy, if the market is supposed to be bullish, why am I generating more sell signals than buy signals? That's a red flag. And now I can kind of, look-see at the markets. So that's kind of like the gist of whatever you like. I know that Jeff likes a lot to look at continuation patterns, and I like to do a little bit of both. I like to look at reversal patterns because they're a lot stronger, and I like to look at the overall health of the market. And at this point in time, when I start to see another scan that I just absolutely love, nothing today at the end of the day generated, if I'm not mistaken, I've just looked at S&P 500. Nothing generated a scan number 5 today. On the buy side, Lam Research, Baxter, Bank America, and Boeing, by the way, generated fresh daily buy signals for tomorrow, incidentally. I look at Boeing and I go, it must be selling some new airplanes. Uptrend, momentum's good. I most likely will look at that maybe tomorrow. If you notice, Boeing just might form a monthly HCD too, by the way. I'll take a look at Boeing a little more carefully. Bank America, I kind of like it. I'm long. We already discussed it. Baxter Lab, it's ironic that every single one of these stocks so far have something in common with scan number 5, which is powerful. They have good daily volume. They've got great momentum. But notice that the trend of the month and the week is up on all of the names that I've just stated. So watch this. Boeing, weekly trend up, monthly trend up. Bank America, monthly trend up, weekly trend up. Baxter, monthly trend up, weekly trend up. Laboratory Corp, wow, monthly trend absolutely up, weekly trend climbing. And so that is kind of a nice combination that if, you are looking for defining a buy signal, money chases money. And here's a great example of where, between scan number 5 and scan number 1 would come in handy. Lamb Research, it's on a monthly buy, it's on a weekly buy, it had a slight pullback, and it generated a buy signal. So this would be going with the dominant trend of the market, right? So this might have a little bit more oomph to the upside before petering out. And then, of course, Zimmer Biomet Holdings, again, monthly trend up, weekly trend up, daily trend up. So these are some pretty powerful ways of examining the market. We all know about high closed dojis, what the condition of high closed doji. What HCD number 2 gave us as we are talking about scans, it just gave us a little bit more. Sometimes we get a PPS buy signal that coincides with an HCD. So what I thought would be kind of neat, it may be overkill, but sometimes the market's in a weekly buy and it pulls back. And when it pulls back, it forms a daily high closed doji and not a PPS. When it pulls back, it forms a daily high closed doji and not a PPS. The PPS will be a couple days later. So I thought it would be a nice scan. Why not do a daily high closed doji when we've got the weekly in a buy mode, or synonymous with, if the market closes here, it's going to form a weekly and daily buy signal. So I can just take a look at that and say, by the way, scan number 2 today didn't have a lot of concentration of buy signals. What I like to do, by the way, as a hint, or as a nice little heads up, when I'm running a scan and I look at buy number 1, I like to look at equally scan sell number 1. When I look at HCD number 2, I also like to look at LCD number 2. So it's just like the same as I did with looking at the weekly low closed doji and the weekly high closed doji. It gives me a comparative analysis, a balance, so to speak, of what the condition of the market is. So scan LCD number 2 relative to HCD number 2. For today, which was an update, we had 8 stocks generate a daily high closed doji, right, on scan number 2. Let's look at daily low closed doji number 2. Oops. Even, my Lord, it's 75 names generate daily low closed dojis, as you can see here, when the weekly is in a sell mode. Can you imagine that? That means the weekly is in a sell mode, and the market rallied and generated sell signals today. We had more daily sell signals on an up day than we did buy signals on an up day. I don't know if anyone likes that. So this is pretty important, guys, to examine that as far as if you want to get your own testifiable, factual data of what the market's doing and not the opinion of the media, your emails, the news. This is probably one of the most powerful ways of doing it. And not only that, but you can kind of take a look and say, well, where did they come from? Shoe Carnival, for example, which was, I believe, if you get the weekly thoughts and observation, I thought I put Shoe Carnival there. I'm not sure if I did, but Shoe Carnival, it did populate on, let's review, weekly low closed dojis. I thought I saw Shoe Carnival there. I did. So Shoe Carnival was as a weekly, and I think the reason I didn't put it in is it's not an official low closed doji because it's after a downtrend, right? Talking out loud. I'm sorry. That's a sideways market. It wasn't. This is an uptrend, and you got a low closed doji, right? That's the difference. This is a sideways market, and I don't know what the hell. Take out these 2 bars right there, and this is a sideways market. Anyway, that's Shoe Carnival. It generated a weekly sell signal. It probably had a little bit of a rally, or it didn't even do that. It's just fallen apart. So weekly scan number 2 today, we had a lot more, obviously, 8 buy signals versus 75 sell signals. Some of them can be blamed, like IBM, on earnings, but it gives you a testifiable edge in the marketplace, and that's what's helpful. Obviously, short-term signals, you expect a little, they give you an edge when a market's turning over. Longer-term signals give you more defined trend reversals, and that's the power of the package of how we utilize this information. When a market gives you a buy signal, so if you're a longer-term investor and you got the buy signal, you know where your stop belongs, below the last conditional change. And then when the market moves up, you can move your stop. You can keep moving your stop. Your stop can be, and that's where you hold your stop. So whether this is a 5-minute chart, same concept over here, it actually stopped you out right there. And it did nothing for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months, and you're able to get back in about the same price, a little higher, but just save yourself 8 months of aggravation. Pretty, I don't even know who the hell this is. Synopsis. Anyway, I was just using it as an example with the last conditional change tool combined, and that's all I was pointing out. What's the value of this package? It's incredible. Is it overkill? Take what you want out. It has everything that I've ever put together to help give me an edge. The only thing we need is we just need the market to move. That's one of the key elements to trading. You need a market to move, right? So Intel has earnings out, and I think I don't know what they did. Who knows? I mean, I think they beat, or maybe they didn't. I can't remember. It was top, bottom line, poor guidance, something of that nature. But you know what? Looking at this market with sloppy momentum, this is a market that, in my mind, longer term, has got some issues with. And we're at the top end of a range, and we're not even at the same level in volume as we once were. So to me, it's one that and again, with the semis and the SOX and all of that kind of good stuff, we'll see how things open up tomorrow. But in this environment, guys, this is one of the most challenging environments that I've been in my lifetime. And I think the market being held hostage by 3 names: Janet, Donald, and Hillary. That's it. And then after that, we'll get back to, real dynamics and fundamentals, which is money. Money makes the world go round, and that's interest rates and, of course, supply and demand, right? Supply and demand. And as long as there's functions of supply and demand and earnings, and the market has ranges, then the indicators are going to work. A lot of these indicators are all predicated not just on price, but they're predicated on market condition, which makes them truly unique. This is kind of, I think, what everybody has wanted to know. How do you really put this thing together? Every week I do the weekly thoughts and observations. I know that everyone can come up with their own trade ideas and have found ways to enhance their performance. There's certain other tools that I use that we created, that we do in our mentoring, like the relative performance, relative strength page, and of course the HCD, LCD. But the regular package, day in and day out, this is a staple product that literally have learned not to trade without. I know I have Genesis, and I know I have there's Thinkorswim, but quite frankly, this is my go-to. I have no words for it. This just tells me everything I want to know about a market in a snap of a finger. Where are we in relationship to, are we overbought or oversold? That's a measurement, and that's a term based on a measurement of strength or weakness in the market, right? Overbought, oversold. What does that mean? Well, is the market near pivot resistance or pivot support? And I can find out whether or not a market or a sector of a market is near its quarterly support already, right? If if it's near quarterly support or quarterly resistance, or if it's at its quarterly pivot. I can immediately tell you where a market is in relationship to its monthly support and resistance. Like, for example, biotech right now. We know it's beyond its monthly support because it's gray. Gray means it's beyond. Percent difference between its current price and just like GLD, the two of them, it's 0 because they're below their respected targets of support, by the way. So if I'm looking for value and I'm looking for a buying opportunity, I'm not looking to buy something at resistance. I'm looking to buy something at support. So even by looking at monthly and even quarterly, I can say, well, maybe something's overshot the runway. Maybe something might be worth buying because it's near support. By the way, let's look at GLD real quick. So GLD did generate, I mean, it's kind of amazing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dojis in this time frame. Momentum's waning. We had a little bit of volume indicator, a crossover. The volume's starting to get a little positive, and today we formed a daily HCD, and that's gold, all right? If you look at gold, the next thing that comes to mind would be what? The gold miners, GDX. The gold miners have a confirmed breakout in volume, the momentum. We had a daily HCD 2 days ago already on the GDX. So the GDX has led gold. Next stop, resistance, 25.10. Close, why do I know 25.10? It's a last conditional change candle. A close over 25.10, probably looking at 28. Let's look at some names off the top of my head. Newmont. Oh, that's very similar. AU, Anglo Gold Ashanti, I think that is. Yes. It had a buy signal 2 days ago and a liftoff. So I don't know about silver wheaten, but let's take a look at silver wheaten just because I'm curious. A daily HCD. So we got a lot of daily high close dojis today, by the way, and a silver wheaten might see a little bit of strength. It closed over a last conditional change with an uptick in volume. At the very least, we know our stop would be below 22.12. I have all of that at a snap of a finger. I picked that up only because the product was near monthly pivot support. That's how I would be looking, and that's how I use this tool to come up with my own trade ideas before they get on the news a week from now. So that's the event tonight. There's a couple questions about the upgrade and the PPS, and it's the current lifetime. Everyone has, if you have the current lifetime, it's real simple. You get everything that we've promised and more. If you want just to put it out, the best product package is really the VIP. It's 1,129 annual memberships. It comes with the HCDs on the radar screens, the volume, scan 5s. That's where you get everything. You actually get, in fact, if you're interested, this is probably an incredible value just from a standpoint, and I'll just get into this real quick. We did this, which I thought was extremely helpful for a lot of people. Option strategies, LCC, many of you attended this. Scan number 5, how to use these things, case reviews. If you do want to sign up for the PUG VIP and have access to the HCDs on your radar screen, the volume indicator, scan number 5, as well as what's coming. And I really want to make sure that this comes out before actually 2017, but I'm saying 2017. But on the radar screen, to come up with the last conditional change, bull or bear breakout alert, that would be pretty damn, because that is another one of my areas that I really watch for besides the HCD and LCD, because many times you don't get a high closed doji, you get a last conditional change breakout, and then you see those things move. By the way, silver wheaten might form a weekly high closed doji. I'm sorry to get distracted there. Let me go over here to where is my metals and see what's going on. Where are gold miners? So why didn't I have insert SLV? SLW, excuse me. All right, so on a daily basis, as you can see, literally the entire sector of gold miners is blinking buy signal, high close doji, and it's warning of a potential weekly high close doji and a buy signal blinking right now in the miners. Hecla Miners is generating a warning that the week is going to be a buy signal. Newmont warning it may form a weekly high close doji, and Silver Wheaton is warning, so that is all good stuff because that's what it should have done. Silver Wheaton may, as I was showing it, I was saying, you know, that better, if the system works, it better be flashing, and as of course you can see, it is. So that's nice stuff. Anyway, if you're interested, again, in the VIP, if you want to have the daily, the weekly HCDs, the intraday, that is applicable for, of course, your intraday as well. So you can program whether you want to look at 15-minute, 60-minute. You can look at it and put it on futures. So if you're just day trading, you have your intraday, your end of day. So if you want to look for how many times do you get a daily HCD or an LCD on the various futures markets, you have that as well. So that would be a part of the VIP. And again, VIP all have access to the seminar that we did, the 3-week seminar that we did in August that took place the 16th, 30th, and 20th, I think that was. If you have any more questions, you can call the office, 561-655-1881. You can email Mary or just email me. It's called Jperson is me, Jperson. My first initial, last name at personsplanet.com, and we'll get you a full description, talk it over with you, see, give you, you know, and sign you up. It's real simple. That concludes tonight's session. Again, I wanted to go over and review one more time, A, the scanner ideas, B, how to get the best out of that radar screen, and then, of course, touch base on the indicators, and then as far as looking at last conditional changes, which in summary, I think are self-explanatory, but when you get a buy signal and you know you're looking for, this is a 15-minute on Silver Wheaton today, and you get a buy signal, if that's what you're looking at. Now it's ironic because gold really didn't have a big move, but some of the metals had a better move today. I mean, relative, it's an 80-cent, 70-cent move in a stock, but you can clearly see the run-up and how the last conditional change, I mean, at least with this stock, really outperformed and worked well. So, again, thank you all for attending. I hope you got a lot out of tonight's session. And if you are interested, again, as always, to being a PUG VIP member, simply call the office. And I thank everyone for their time. And this was recorded. You can see the recording. We'll have it out probably tomorrow for your review. Thanks again. And if there's any other questions, certainly send them in. If you have a question, a comment, it's always nice to get constructive feedback as well as your successes. So it's nice to hear, and I definitely know some of you guys have sent us some pretty amazing, what we will call a testimonial. You know, some are a little too good to believe, so, but it's very nice to hear those compliments. It's amazing to see that the teaching's working and it's effective for you guys. Thank you all very much. Have a great evening.